people. Welcome to Miro Podcast. This is episode 13. I'm super excited to be here with you tonight once again. All right, you already know what we do here. We have honest conversations with ourselves. All right, before we dive into today's conversation, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who has been listening, sharing, liking, supporting this podcast. Your feedback, your messages, your encouragement means so much to me. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. Honestly, I hope that you find value even after you listen to tonight's episode of Mirror Podcast. Okay, this is where you need to be. Just sit right and just pay attention to everything we're going to be seeing tonight. Have an open heart and be teachable as well. So, last week we explored the reality that our lives are not random, they move in seasons. We discussed how God is in charge when we recognize and cooperate with God, what God is doing in that particular season. So, for so many years, some of us thought seasons were only about just raining, dry, or past just different stages of life, right? But we discovered that life itself is made up of different seasons, and each season carries its purpose, lessons, opportunities, and responsibilities. We also talked about the importance of becoming aware of our current season because awareness reduces confusion. So when you understand the season that you are, you stop comparing your journey to everybody else. You stop forcing things that God may be asking you to release. I know that can be quite tough. And you begin to align yourself with what God is trying to accomplish in your life. I don't want to spend too much of time repeating what we discussed. If you really want to get it, just go back to episode 12 and listen to it. And I want to also get your feedback. And when you're done, you'll be glad that you really, enjoyed the episode. All right, so tonight we're going to be discussing about the cost of misunderstanding your season and the people assigned to it. Because yes, people are actually assigned to your seasons. And one of the greatest mistakes we make is assuming that everyone who enters our life has to stay forever. Some people are meant to stay seasonal. They don't have to be bad, right? Some people are transitional. Some people are instructional. And if we misunderstand our season, we may also misunderstand the people connected to it. So now let's get into it. Every season has an assignment. I repeat, every season has an assignment. One of the mistakes people make is viewing seasons merely as periods of time, chronological time, and all of that. But our seasons are more than the period of time. Seasons as an assignment, it has its own curriculum. Do you see that? Every season carries its own lesson. Every season carries its own opportunity for growth. And God never moves us into a season without intending to produce something through it. And the challenge is that many of us become so focused on escaping a season that we fail to learn from it. We ask God things like, God, when will this season end? Instead of us saying, God, what are you trying to teach me in this season? And sometimes what God is even trying to teach us is far more valuable than what we are asking to give us. A season is not successful because it ended quickly. A season is successful because you learned what it came to teach you. I hope that you stick with that. God often uses people to deliver lessons to us. And one thing I've observed over the years is that God really teaches us in isolation. Most of the lessons we learn come through people that He has chosen Himself, right? Sometimes God will send you mentors. Sometimes He will send you friends. Sometimes it can be maybe some couples. He will just send you certain couple into your life. But sometimes He sends you a community. And sometimes He even sends you difficult people. Yeah, not because He wants to frustrate you, but because there's something within us that needs to be revealed, refined, healed, and strengthened. And many of us will have to pray for wisdom. God will send us mentors. We pray for growth. God sends us responsibility. When we pray for healing, God sends us relationship that exposes the area that needs healing. Now, the answer to our prayers arrives in the form of people. Some of us will pray for all of these things and we see them come in form of people and we are wondering, is this what I wanted? Now, what is the cause of misunderstanding your people? And this is where frustration comes for most of us because the misinterpretation of what God is doing has its own consequences. Sometimes we are praying for promotion while God is focused on our character. Sometimes we are praying for visibility while God is teaching us humility. Sometimes we are praying for influence while God is building discipline. And because we misunderstand the season, we become frustrated with that process. We begin to compare ourselves with other people. We complain about where we are. we resist the lessons, and in doing so, we prolong the very thing we're trying to escape. When you ignore a particular lesson, God will ask you to repeat that lesson. And a season resisted often becomes prolonged. And you wonder, why are you still staying there? And this is the consequences of holding on to people beyond their assignments. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn. Not every ending with a particular person is a betrayal. Not every separation is rejection. Not every goodbye that you give to that person in your life means that something has to be wrong. Sometimes a person has simply completed the assignment in your life, and sometimes God is preparing both of you for different seasons. And one of the reasons people are shipping is because they try to force permanence where God intended a season. We try to hold on to people God is asking us to release. They may not be bad people. We try to recreate what God has already completed. And in doing so, we miss the beauty of the next season. Every person who lives your life is not always your enemy. Some were simply a part of your chapter, not the entire pages of the book. Now let's move on to how to recognize the people assigned to our seasons. The people that the Lord has assigned to our season often have something in common. They will challenge us to go. They will reveal different blind spots. They stretch our thinking. They expose areas that need development. They push us beyond, push us closer to purpose. They push us beyond our comfort zone. They challenge our mindset. Sometimes they do everything all together. So instead of, whenever you see the attitude of this person, instead of saying, oh, do I really like this person? I think a better way to ask question is, what is God trying to teach me through this person? Because sometimes the lesson is more important than the relationship itself. Do you see that? Now, I want you to understand this evening. You don't need to miss the lesson. Why focusing on that person? One of the mistakes we can make as human is to becoming so attached to that vessel that God has brought into our life than focusing on what God is trying to teach us. Because people are lessons, people are vessels, people are lessons, and they can be our mentors, they can be communities, they can be friends, they can be a family. The goal is not to worship and to hold on to those people. The goal is to receive what God is trying to communicate through those vessels into our life. Now, when we understand this, we'll stop idolizing these people. We stop depending on people for what only God can provide. And we become more grateful for every person who has played a major role in that journey of our life. Yes. And I think as we round up on today's episode, I want to leave you tonight. The maturity of a person is not simply recognizing that life has season. True maturity is recognizing that what God is doing in your season, who is using to accomplish it. Every season has a purpose. Every season has a lesson. Every season comes with people assigned to help us grow. Don't fight your season. Don't resent your process. And don't miss the lesson because you are too focused on discomfort. Right? What is God teaching me right now? That is what you should be asking yourself. What has God placed around me in this season? What am I supposed to learn before moving into the next chapter? Thank you so much for having me on this episode of your podcast. God bless you.